After seeing Victoria Falls for the first time, David Livingstone wrote, "Scenes so lovely must have been gazed upon by angels in their flight." The Zambians call it mosi o atunya, or the rumbling smoke. This rumbling resonates throughout Zambia, a country that has never really tapped into its rich resources or invested in its infrastructure.
Driving a left hand in Zambia is a bit challenging,
The Zambians are struggling to survive, but remain optimistic throughout every challenge they face.
How many people now inside? 6.
There's always a solution. When the cabs are about to crack under the weight of their goods, they use their heads in both senses of the word. Some risk it, while others prefer to turn their bikes into delivery vehicles. Over £1,000 on each wheel. Nothing is thrown out in Zambia, and everything can be fixed.
Here in Africa, that's how we do.
There are also legendary men in the country who have power beyond measure. However, these men here are unable to leave their small islands and must stay surrounded by stagnant water until the king gives them permission. On that day, they'll begin their move in a customary procession that takes them to the highlands. The locals have an expression. The price of a buffalo is often more than the price of a man. Summer, or more precisely, the rainy season, starts at the beginning of November in Zambia. Wheels get stuck and the older machines start seizing up. This particular one has provided 42 years of loyal service. Starting the motor requires a certain level of craftsmanship.
When it's get heated, put in the air clean so that it becomes heat fast for the starting the machine.
And let's hope it works, as it had been 3 weeks since Nicholas and his father Kosam earned any money. They'd finally got an order but were having issues with their truck. Everyone got together to help save the truck they all call Goddess of Manunga, the legendary Iron Lady. Without her, the village of Manunga would not exist. Kosam has been behind the wheel for over 30 years, transporting bricks and stones to build every house and store in the village.
It's very difficult unless you consult some people, get some people from the other places, and you come on push. Yeah, that's where it can move. Very famous. That was 1976. That was my grandfather bought it. Everyone knows.
If they can't get the truck going, Nicholas and his father will have to fork out $50 to bring a tractor. And these guys don't have $50 to spare, so they made one last attempt. We'll have to wait and see if the goddess of Manunga will make it the 30 miles to the brickyard. It's hardly the most environmentally friendly vehicle, but this is the least of their worries. Two people are required to drive this old British-made beast. Nicholas became co-pilot at the age of 8 and has become his father's eyes and ears over time as his eyesight has deteriorated. Nicholas not only guides him, but must hold on to the gear stick the entire time. If not, it automatically goes back into neutral. This old British bird is constantly breaking down and groaning, and her latest tantrum meant we had to make an emergency stop for fear something would explode. Time to top up the oil.
You want to have this one Oh, when we move just a short distance, we have then all because there's a leakage somewhere. Here in the engine, the water pump has leakage, so the motor moves. As we are moving, we are moving out.
Every stop requires topping it up with 2 litres of oil and a jerry can of gas.
The tank that we have is just okay. Now the pipes are not okay. So we've replaced it by putting a container. It is only 5 liters. As we are moving, then we add on.
It's clear that this old lady's frame is almost damaged beyond repair. Unfortunately, the day the last bolt blows, Nicholas and his father will no longer have a source of income, and neither will their workers. The goddess was holding on for now, but for how long? Despite her dramatic damages, at least she's not underwater, like those in the southeast of the kingdom of Barotseland. The Zambezi River had burst its banks. The flood hadn't covered everything, but entire villages found themselves knee-deep in water. Hundreds of farmers were trapped in their huts, built on the highest part of their fields. Nambayo doesn't complain, however. The river will enrich his soils with silt and produce a good harvest, but the flood does come with certain dangers. He had installed a rudimentary security system to protect himself. But why stay? Why had Nambayo and his neighbours resorted to fishing to survive and refused to leave their flooded lands? Well, because they are part of the Lotsi tribe, who will only move from their flooded land when their king permits them. On this day, everyone was finally heading to the highlands in an incredible procession called Kuomboka.
Fatava komboka ceremony. Moma vorozi sichava kafa satavera nganuna lwatavera kakafya luna. Kona kuli nuna lulwa kutwande neke onafa. Usafeza fa kuchache za kuchache petro matela chwe kwale kwanto. Fafa haba. Nafuta kumatela fa kamuso chwela kaomboka mulena. Na sepa petro matela chwe kwale mulunga kuyobona mulena kamba kwale alui.
Here he is, sporting his 19th century British Admiral's uniform, King Imwiko II, one of the most powerful kings on the African continents. He is Litunga, the guardian of the earth. He's in charge of the entire western province of Zambia and its 650,000 inhabitants. Considered a living god, he has immense powers. Only a few advisors and his court are permitted to speak to him without bowing. You must never turn your back on the king. It was time for the battle to commence between these men. When the river's waters are about to reach the palace, the king commands kuomboka, literally, get out of the water to join the dry land. This pilgrimage to his second residence takes place on large rowboats with his court. The region's men begin to compete against one another at this point. Everyone wants to be selected as the royal paddler, and this tradition's selection process has been ruthless for over 300 years.
Ukafuliwa koto ya kukuzwisa materi kukuisa manotira aluka pale wanema mambo ona mikolo no naye ka fere mbwana yeba na baisu kimikolo ya silenda abaka kuzwisa mo kukuisa mwani usike wanga kuli na bani nyefuzi. It's not only nalikwanda yeba buhanga batili ginali kwanda yeni ba ubuha kono niona na mikolo nayo mitule kama ka fere na mikolo yani amutama teni babu hala tu chale au fuma nikolo ya kuli Utebezi, one of these boats here. Komboka. The paddle. That's what is important. Yes. And you are not supposed to do it faster or slow, but you know how to paddle properly. Okay. You need to do it in the same rhythm, the same way.
It's far from easy.
Next, I'm in the papas.
We are never on a Fafahaba.
I'll pretend.
Amukana kinaba sisepe sisi mufasi nyani. Muswali seba lubata na kwenye au. Wana wote aluka kuona wasundeza kuntongona. Ngabama luka kushatule.
They need 300 royal paddlers and were nowhere near their target. Someone else struggling to reach their destination was the goddess of Manunga, who has broken down once again. However, Kossam and his son Nicholas have discovered the steering axle out of place.
As you can see, the tires moved behind because the U-boat has been gone.
Arona ngonga balumendo ule ni kwata kwa buliki nani kana limbi umbi kwa kumatala ya kunu moko.
There are just 30 inches between the bumper frame and the ground. It's exhausting work.
Now she very quick pamuno. Pamuno me kwati mwakome. Fine yaba ilo no pamuno kuyumina kwatira kabuta. Train first kwati bale no kwatira kabuta.
Without noticing the obvious danger, Kossam started to fill the truck with gas. Meanwhile, underneath the truck, the disaster was narrowly avoided, but put everyone in the bad mood. After 3 hours of exhausting work, the Iron Lady was finally resurrected. It was almost night time, so the brick collection would have to wait until the next day. At least on the way back, Nicholas and Kosam were able to pick up a few passengers.
For us to find money, unless we have one trip, maybe for the bricks, the sand, just like that. We do buy some newspapers, but that we have got done. So this is how we survive here. But it has been difficult for us. Yeah. My father is now 40 now. If Nick is driving, it is because we are poor. I do not have something to do so that I can help my father for him to live a better life.
The goddess of Manunga isn't in the best shape, so it's time for a visit to Dr. Henri. Henri is the only Rasta garage owner around these parts.
This vehicle, it's very strong. No wonder why it is even still on the road, because this make is made from Britain long time ago. So it's not easy for someone to run this vehicle unless he has got a lot of experience. Yes. I'm the doctor of this truck. Because I've been in the work for over 25 years, so I know it very well. So no wonder why you are even seeing it at this time it's moving due to my knowledge.
It's okay?
Yes, it's okay. It can drive.
We can know how many kilometers the truck has, or it's impossible to know? But I think...
It has a broken dashboard.
She must have done at least 500,000 miles. Kosam was praying Dr. Henri would give his goddess the strength to head out the next morning for bricks. There are thousands of resourceful people in the Zambian provinces, just like Kosam, each earning a living and sometimes risking their lives for just a few cents. Here, his children weren't just throwing water on the ground for fun, they're wetting the earth to prevent the invisible enemy from being released into the air. They live in a disaster-stricken town. Kabwe is highly polluted by lead and zinc mines. Excessively exploited, the toxic dust released over time is now everywhere, with thousands of cases of lead poisoning amongst children, as well as many other illnesses. Abandoned, the townsfolk try to treat themselves using grandma's traditional solutions.
chemicals digestion system alimentary canal so that it's most important thing. Don't say fish and every time.
These gallons of milk are in fact useless, but seem to have a placebo effect. So much so that Alex and his brother continue to work in the now deserted lead mines. The government shut them down when contamination exceeded warning levels back in 1994, but the town itself has never been depolluted. And rats, as they call themselves, continue to create this deadly dust.
Yeah, it was a prohibited area, but since these people didn't want to face, the government didn't want to help these people, so they actually started working in here just by force.
Okay, but it's illegal.
It's illegal, yeah, it's illegal.
This is what it's called the prohibited area for the danger way.
Why is it dangerous?
It's very dangerous because of this.
Alex, his brothers, and hundreds of rats are relentlessly digging and sifting for lead. But spending 10 hours a day breathing in metal microparticles is the price to pay just to put food on the table.
Because by the moment we finish putting soil into our sacks, we start lifting those. And we usually put them at our back of our neck.
Like shinga, mkwata na mshinga every day.
500, 600, 400. It depends according to the way you are working.
Apariti.
What's the most important?
Because it's the one that is usually defined, like more like to savage, and it's the one that is processed first. Okay. First, because the zinc manganese, zinc dolomite, it's a long process. What to wash and bimba. You need 5% of it. You can even carry the weight. If you want to hold it, you can feel it. You can carry the weight.
It's a good quality?
Good quality, yes. Good percentage.
The extracted lead will be used to produce car batteries, crystal glassware, sound insulation, and even underwater electric cables. Africa is rich in mineral ores, a profitable business that, unfortunately, rarely trickles down to its poorer populations. Zambia is the biggest copper producer in Africa. The factory that refines the ore has contaminated the town of Mufulira. The ore is extracted by injecting sulfuric acid, which is manufactured in huge quantities and sold to the Democratic Republic of Congo, which also operates its own copper mines. Millions of gallons are transported on the roads, and these trucks are ticking time bombs.
They are sealed. They are not. Unless nga chao naika. Chale. Chale le puike po, ola chasa pone na muka fiwe liva. Isa bidionse.
These trucks look like they're in good condition, but they're often held together with bits of string. Joseph is carrying 20 tons of acid with no safety measures or cars to open the road for him.
Just have to be extra careful. You know, in towns, a lot of things happen. So, like, there are so many people, pedestrians walking. So, you have to be slow. Every day when I wake up, I have to thank God and ask Him for His guidance. Especially when you are going to Congo.
Despite carrying sulfuric acid, Joseph had a good excuse for speeding.
Sulfuric acid, you don't drive after 18 hours. 18 hours you park. Yeah. So when it comes to parking, you have to make sure that where you park safe, otherwise they'll be beaten up.
There are often endless lines of traffic at the border. Joseph wanted to avoid sleeping in his truck, so he ploughed on faster and faster, with one added danger. His steering wheel is on the left, and in Zambia, they drive like the British.
Driving a left hand in Zambia is a bit challenging. Like when you want to overtake, you can't see very clearly. Like, you have to move this side, then that's when you see. So sometimes what you do is you come to your left, you check, that's when you overtake.
Risk-taker Joseph knew he needed to slow down as soon as possible, but still called his mechanic without taking his foot off the gas. He could very well end up like this driver.
You have to be very brave. Every ditch and every time you have to be brave.
But at around 4:30 p.m, just 6 miles from the border, Joseph got stuck in a huge traffic jam. He risked his life for nothing and would spend the night in his truck.
No, we have to wait here because it's not safe that side. We will sleep in the queue, so we have to start the queue early in the morning. That's when we join the queue.
More than 1,000 trucks had been queuing since the morning. Why? A Congolese customs officer was murdered the night before. The border was in fact closed. Nobody was getting through. Everyone was trying to find a parking space, but some weren't great at taking directions.
It's too small for the truck?
Yes.
And how you can do to... You think you can...
No, this one you want.
We need to move this truck?
Yes.
I can't move my truck. It's already bleeding here. I'm not floating there. We must go back and go around.
He says that you must go back.
Even under normal circumstances, it can take a week to cross the border, so a group of entrepreneurs have put a system in place to solve this issue. They offer businesses delivery using alternative routes, transporting their goods on their heads or cargo bikes. It even saves these businesses money, as the bribes paid to soldiers are much lower than customs tax.
Kimoya kiko na 10 kilo. Iko 50. Ibi go 50. 50. Na ibi 50. Okay. For that. Kimoya 500.
1 ton of goods and the bike is still standing strong. Everything is calculated precisely.
Mina fabriquer vélo, njo nyanza kubeba bya bingi. Mina weka muchi yangu yiku mu kilometrage ya 2,5 meters. Jo ya mi kubloquer bien. Kama mimi naweka bintu bishaanza kuniderange mbalabala. Naanza kutembea facilement. Jo kile mimi napata akili ya kufanya hiki kitu ndio naanza kutembea mzuri. Tuko mapapa dabale. You see this? Mimi na formule na hivi vyote. Mimi ndio mimi na formule. Jo biko contre quoi? Kama charge iko ya mingi. Abita tenga biku paka na hiyo.
Despite this ingenious solution, the bikes still must wade through traffic, often fighting to get through.
Sinjo kile tunalomba. Hautalarisha kaloko pale. Wewe wewe. Ingia kule kadogo na mwe kule. Tanisukumana na yeye mafuta mtanguka na mwenana atanibloke. Pita. Pita kata huko, kata huko pale. Mama. Kuya tena kule. Route à Congo, Zambie. Sur le net. Oui, oui.
Thousands of tons of goods are illegally brought across the border every day. Joseph would struggle getting 20 tons of acid across on men's backs. The driver, unfortunately, has to wait in line.
It's time for cooking now. It's a small kitchen.
Joseph ended up spending 5 days in the cab of his truck before crossing the border. In Monunga, Nicholas and his father Kosam were unable to head off in the morning as planned. They discovered their British goddess had a flat tyre.
Hapa turemenda mending this patch zero to pompe tubike mu tire
so mu checking ashani tala
turabika mu mesh check your water
and it's efficient.
Yes. Here in Africa that's how we do. Sanga wale mfwana sana bafadha turemende ta pangie chikamba cha kumenda tala.
The tyre has, let's say, seen better days, but will be used until the very end. The goddess of Monunga, Kosam's pride and joy, is invincible.
So here, this is where we get the bricks to use for building other infrastructures. These are very nice bricks. As you can see, the land here is full of gravel. So when making bricks, they become tough so they cannot be easily broken. These same bricks, we can use it to build shops, schools, and other infrastructures. They are very good.
Emo tusangira na ife muri ifine nga twatama twashitisha nga mwatu shitange ifine twakwata olupya twashitamu efi yakufwala twashitamu efi yakulya na fimbi twabomfya kwefinga fwayo na moto kaira twafwanga ifine ine yaisa tusendera amatafwali tutwaliro
twafwana sana
ine twafwa sana
waisanga fi.
The 42-year-old goddess of Mununga could finally take a well-deserved break. But the villagers weren't done with her yet. Despite her numerous injuries, this young boy will still see her driving around the village when he's all grown up. This goddess proudly overtakes her more modern counterparts who could never withstand the same damage, showing them that she still has some life in her engine and perpetuating her legend. On the banks of the river Zambezi, the tense selection of the royal paddlers is coming to a close. 300 men will have the honour of bringing the king to his second palace. We'll have to wait and see if they're the right guys for the job.
Mwabona mwana fuloela mwana ukapata uzibanda huru. Ni kwa mulaho. Bwana ni bula kuiba pale ngibaza mwatende. Alunya kufeli balea lidaki. Bali bila huru kwa.
Selibu gaiba tu mimi wase mmoja.
This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2, 3, 24, 25, 26, 27, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55. 55 mwaka.
Tomorrow is the big day. The king was making them wait, only boarding once all his personal belongings were loaded, and he brought everything but the kitchen sink. Taking advantage of the chaos, those disgruntled paddlers who've been assigned to less prestigious boats tried to sneak onto the royal boat. The captains tried to stop these free riders from boarding as best they could. Everyone was confused, so the military tried to calm the situation.
This is our traditional ceremony. Today we are coming out from water to the upper land.
When the king of the Lotsi people sets sail in just a few hours, his people can finally move to more hospitable lands after spending 43 days surrounded by flooded waters. Under the watchful eye of the powerful symbol that adorns his boat, King Imwiko II, alongside a member of the Zambian government, started the procession. The Queen followed in a slightly smaller boat, with the boats for the court and royal mistresses in her wake. The elephant, symbol of the king's physical and mental strength, came to life amongst the tall grass. The king finally disembarked on the other side of his kingdom 8 hours later, with the people welcoming their king in a fanfare. The Lotsi will celebrate this successful journey for 3 days.